all the land north of that river's mine. Tell him to stay off of it.
For more than half a century, one single figure stood as the unshakable pillar of American identity, casting a shadow that stretched across the entire globe. You know the image intimately, almost as if it's part of your own DNA. The towering 6'4" height that seemed to command respect without saying a word. That distinctive, rolling walk that suggested a man who had spent a lifetime in the saddle taming the wild frontier, and the slow, gritty drawl that vibrated with absolute authority. John Wayne wasn't just a movie star. He was the Duke. He was the ultimate, carefully curated symbol of rugged masculinity, a celluloid cowboy who represented honor, courage, and the unshakable belief that everything would be all right if you just stood your ground and fought for what was right. He was the face on the poster that told us who we were supposed to be as Americans: invincible, righteous, and unwavering. But what if I told you that the man you saw on screen, the war hero, the cowboy, the fearless leader, was nothing more than a ghost? What if the hero millions of people idolized was actually a carefully constructed lie designed to hide a much darker, more troubling reality? For decades, a powerful, well-oiled machine of Hollywood executives, highly paid publicists, and Wayne himself worked tirelessly to build a fortress around his reputation, burying the truths that didn't fit the script. They sold the world a legend because the truth was simply too profitable to risk exposing. They created a mythology so potent that it became forbidden to question it. Now, decades after his death, the cracks in that monument are finally starting to show, and the facade is crumbling under the weight of history. From studio executives who managed his career to fellow actors who suffered on his sets, the people who actually knew him are revealing that the gap between John Wayne the icon and John Wayne the man was perhaps the greatest special effect Hollywood ever produced. We are about to pull back the curtain on the Duke to reveal the deception, the cover-ups, and the shocking truths that have been hidden for generations. This isn't just about an actor, it's about the lie we all bought, the cultural deception we participated in, and the man who was lost inside it.
To understand the magnitude of the deception, you have to go back to the very beginning. Before the fame, the money, and the accolades, the world knew him as John Wayne, the rugged Westerner born in the saddle, ready to tame the frontier with grit and gunpowder. But the truth? He was Marion Robert Morrison, a kid from Winterset, Iowa, who didn't start out as a tough guy at all. He was an awkward young man who actually failed as a football player at USC due to an injury before the studio system got their claws into him. The John Wayne we know wasn't born, he was built in a boardroom by executives looking for a product to sell, a brand to market to a Depression-era America hungry for heroes. We tend to think of our favorite stars from the golden age as being authentic, rough-hewn men of the people who just stumbled onto the screen because of their natural charisma. But insiders and film historians claim that Wayne underwent one of the most aggressive personality makeovers in entertainment history. It wasn't just a simple name change to something that sounded more masculine than Marion. Studio hits didn't just hand him a script for a movie, they essentially handed him a script for his life. They needed a symbol, not a person, and Marion Morrison was the canvas they painted on. They crafted his biography, his interest, and even his mannerisms to fit a market demographic. He was Hollywood's Frankenstein monster stitched together from the ideals of the American West. Everything we associate with the Duke was manufactured, down to the smallest detail. Take that famous rolling walk, for instance. It looks all natural, like a man who's been spending years walking the fence line of a ranch. But sources reveal it was a calculated affectation, a performance he practiced for hours in front of mirrors until it became second nature. He studied the movements of stuntmen and real cowboys, mimicking them until the mimicry became his reality. The tough guy stare, rehearsed. The slow, commanding delivery, coached. He was given a character to play 24 hours a day, 7 days a week,
creating a heroic alter ego that often bore zero resemblance to the real Marion Morriston. But while a walk and a talk were thick, the image of the American soldier he projected would turn out to be the most controversial fabrication of all.
If there is one thing John Wayne is synonymous with, it's his patriotism. He built an entire career playing the courageous soldier, the Green Beret, the man storming the beaches of Iwo Jima. He became the global poster boy for American military might, the face of the greatest generation. He sold the image of sacrifice and duty better than any recruitment poster ever could. But insiders and historians have pointed out a glaring, uncomfortable hypocrisy that haunted Wayne his entire life. When his country actually needed him, the hero was nowhere to be found. During World War II, Hollywood was emptying out. Legends like Jimmy Stewart were flying dangerous bombing missions over Europe, risking death every time they took to the skies. Henry Fonda enlisted in the Navy to serve on destroyers in the Pacific. Clark Gable famously joined the Army Air Forces after his wife died, serving as an aerial gunner. These men put their careers, their millions, and their lives on the line because they believed it was their duty. But John Wayne? He stayed home. Reports indicate he secured a 3A deferment, a status designated for family support, despite being 34 years old and in perfect physical condition. While other men his age were facing the horrors of the battlefield, Wayne was safely on a Hollywood set, advancing his career and pretending to be the very thing he refused to become. This didn't go unnoticed by the people who mattered. The legendary director John Ford, a man who helped launch Wayne's career and who had served and been wounded at the Battle of Midway, reportedly had a deep, simmering contempt for this choice. Behind Wayne's back, it's said Ford referred to him as phony brave. Crew members have shared uncomfortable stories of Ford making cutting remarks after a few drinks, mocking Wayne for playing soldier while real men were dying overseas. Wayne would just take it, perhaps because he knew the uncomfortable truth. His entire heroic persona was built on stolen valor. He profited from the image of the soldier without ever paying the price of the uniform. But if you think his war record was controversial, just wait until you hear what he said when the cameras weren't rolling.
For decades, the powerful studio system managed to keep a tight lid on Wayne's private views, ensuring that the fair-minded hero image remained intact. They knew that the public loved the idea of John Wayne, the defender of the underdog, the man of justice, the protector of the weak, and the reality could destroy the box office. But in 1971, that lid blew off with an explosion that Hollywood is still trying to clean up. In a now infamous interview with Playboy magazine, Wayne dropped the mask completely. When asked about social issues, he didn't give the polite, PR-friendly answer. Instead, he bluntly stated, "I believe in white supremacy." He went on to say that he didn't believe in giving authority or leadership positions to irresponsible people until they were educated to a point of responsibility. It was a shocking admission that seemed to come from a different era, yet he said it proudly, without hesitation or shame. He wasn't misquoted. He was articulating a worldview that fundamentally contradicted the freedom his characters supposedly fought for. It wasn't a slip of the tongue. Throughout the interview, he doubled down, expressing shocking views on the LGBTQ+ community and Native Americans. Regarding the historic taking of land from Native Americans, he callously dismissed the genocide, claiming that great numbers of people needed new land, and the Native Americans were just selfishly trying to keep it for themselves. He framed the brutal history of colonization as a simple matter of survival of the fittest, completely stripping the indigenous population of their humanity. Insiders at the time recall absolute panic in the studio executive offices. This was their golden boy, their national symbol, openly spewing hatred in a major publication. But here is the truly shocking part. The machine worked. Instead of his career ending, the studio system mobilized to bury the controversy. They minimized the circulation of the interview, flooded the press with positive stories about his charity work, and effectively erased the incident from the public consciousness for decades. The public wanted the myth so badly that they were willing to ignore the man's own words. But for the people who had to work with him, there was no erasing the behavior they endured on set.
The honorable cowboy who defended the weak on screen was, according to many colleagues, a nightmare to work with in reality. While the public saw a charming protector who always tipped his hat to the ladies, cast and crew members described an atmosphere of fear, intimidation, and unpredictability. The set of a John Wayne movie wasn't a family, it was a dictatorship, and Wayne was the undisputed tyrant. One actress, who chose to remain anonymous even years later due to fear of retribution, described working with Wayne as walking through a minefield. He was known to be volatile, charming and avuncular one minute and humiliating you the next. Junior actors were his favorite targets. Michael Anderson Jr., who worked with Wayne as a young man, recalled a brutal incident where he was interrupted mid-line during rehearsal. Wayne allegedly shouted at him in front of the entire crew, telling him he was acting like a goddamn schoolgirl and needed to find some balls. It was a power move designed to crush the young actor's confidence and establish dominance in front of the tribe. It wasn't just actors. He reportedly exerted a suffocating level of control over directors and crew. He acted like the set was his personal kingdom. If he didn't like a camera angle, he changed it. If he didn't like a line, he cut it. One cinematographer noted that Wayne treated the set like his saloon, and everyone else was just working for the bartender. He would allegedly fire crew members for minor infractions, like the temperature of his coffee, just to prove he could. If you weren't in his inner circle, you were a target. He respected strength, but he preyed on what he perceived as weakness. But while he was bullying people on set, rumors suggest he was also using his influence to destroy lives on a much larger scale in the political arena. We tend to look back at the Hollywood blacklist era as a dark time of paranoia, a shameful period where lives were ruined over whispers and innuendo. And it turns out, our hero was allegedly right in the middle of it. While he played the defender of freedom on screen, declassified FBI files and industry whispers suggest Wayne was acting as a high-level enforcer for the anti-communist crusade. It's been said that Wayne didn't just support the blacklist ideologically, he actively helped ruin careers. Sources claim he acted as a liaison, feeding names of suspicious colleagues to intelligence agencies and studio heads. If you were a writer, director, or actor who leaned too far left, or even if you just supported the wrong petition, Wayne could reportedly make a single phone call and ensure you never worked in this town again. He wasn't just an observer, he was an active participant in the purge, serving as co-president of the Motion Picture Alliance for the Preservation of American Ideals, a group dedicated to rooting out subversives. The irony is staggering. The man who became rich playing characters who stood up to tyranny was in real life allegedly using secret lists and backroom deals to silence dissent. He was enforcing a rigid definition of Americanism that destroyed the livelihoods of hundreds of innocent people. Directors like Vincent Sherman found themselves suddenly unemployable, careers vanishing overnight because a powerful figure like Wayne allegedly labeled them unreliable. He fought for freedom on screen by taking it away from others in real life. But as the decades wore on, the man who seemed invincible began to face an enemy he couldn't bully or blacklist.
By the mid-60s, Wayne was at the height of his power, a living legend. But physically, he was crumbling. In 1964, he received a diagnosis that should have stopped him in his tracks: lung cancer. But the Duke couldn't be seen as weak. The studio machine went into overdrive to cover it up, creating one of the biggest medical lies in Hollywood history. They told the public he was being treated for a minor lung infection or had a small growth removed, minimizing the severity to protect the brand. The reality was horrific. Surgeons had removed his entire left lung and 4 ribs in a brutal procedure. He was in agony, struggling to breathe, his body traumatized. Yet, The show had to go on. He was back on set within months, pushing his body to the limit to prove he was still the alpha male. And here is the most disturbing part. He was reportedly still chain-smoking between takes, ignoring doctors' orders and common sense. He was playing a game of Russian roulette with his own body. Crew members recall the air in his trailer being thick with smoke, a chimney that everyone else had to endure. He was literally killing himself to maintain the image, and in the process, exposing everyone around him to the same toxic fumes. One makeup artist recalled the struggle of working in that environment, coughing and eyes watering, but unable to speak up because, well, you don't tell John Wayne to put out his cigarette. When a crew member dared to suggest he slow down, Wayne reportedly snapped, "When I need medical advice from a grip, I'll let you know." It was a reckless display of denial, a desperate attempt to prove that the indestructible cowboy was still standing. But eventually, time ran out.
The end of John Wayne's life wasn't the glorious sunset ride we saw in his final film, The Shootist. It was a brutal, agonizing battle that stripped away every layer of the myth. When stomach cancer struck in the late 70s, the man who had faced down armies on screen was reduced to a frightened, vulnerable human being. Nurses and friends who were with him in those final days at UCLA Medical Center describe a heartbreaking scene. Gone was the swagger. Gone was the toughness. He had withered away to a shadow of his former self, weighing barely 160 pounds. He was reportedly terrified, filled with regret, and desperate for comfort. He needed help with the most basic bodily functions, a humiliation for a man who prided himself on absolute strength and independence. The Duke was gone. Only Marion Morrison remained, facing the void. Witnesses say he questioned his life choices, wondering if he had spent too much time playing a character and not enough time being a father or a husband. He reportedly grabbed the hand of a friend and whispered, "It's all gone too fast. There should have been more time." He sought solace in religion, converting to Catholicism on his deathbed, looking for answers that his cowboy code couldn't provide. It was a stark, human ending that the public never saw. Even in death, the PR machine spun the story, emphasizing his courage and fighting spirit, erasing the pain and fear to keep the product pristine. They sold us the death of a hero, hiding the death of a man. So, who was John Wayne? Was he the hero we needed, or the illusion we fell for? The truth is, he was a masterpiece of manufacturing, a flawless product created by a system that knew exactly what America wanted to believe about itself. He was a vessel for our national hopes and dreams, but the vessel itself was hollow. They sold us a cowboy, a soldier, a patriot, but behind the curtain was a man who dodged the draft, harbored deep prejudices, bullied his co-stars, and lived a life of profound contradictions. Hollywood proved that with the right lighting, the right script, and enough repetition, you can make the world believe in anything, even a hero who never really existed. And maybe that's the real tragedy. We were so in love with the myth, we never bothered to look for the man. The legend of John Wayne is less about the man himself and more about our own desire to believe in a hero who is too good to be true. What do you think? After peeling back the layers, does the Duke still stand tall in your eyes, or has the legend crumbled? I want to know your take. Drop a comment below and let's get the discussion started. If you found this deep dive into Hollywood's hidden history fascinating, please hit that like button. It really helps us uncover more stories like this. And if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe and ring that bell so you never miss out on the truth behind the stars. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.